When you think about baseball in South Carolina, we think about Shoeless Joe Jackson, right? Everybody knows about him. Larry Doby, as you guys may or may not know, was born in Camden, South Carolina in 1923. He stayed in South Carolina until he was about 14, and then he moved to New Jersey, to Patterson, where he attended Eastside High School. A little funny side note on Eastside High School, that's actually the school that was talked about in the movie Lean on Me. During that time, Larry was trying to preserve his college eligibility, but he wanted to make money. So he tried out and made the Newark Eagles. He didn't sign up as Larry Doby, he signed up as Larry Walker. And he did that to protect his eligibility. So Larry became a star player for the Newark Eagles until, as we know, World War II happened. And in World War II, Larry got drafted, and he went to Great Lakes Naval Academy in Illinois. And in 1946, Larry Doby was part of the members of the World Championship Negro League team, the Newark Eagles. And then he started being scouted by the major leagues. By this time, Jackie Robinson had been signed by the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1945, and then played for the Montreal Royals in 1946. Breaking the color barrier was kind of new, and a lot of owners in baseball was hesitant. There was one owner who was looking to make a splash. His name was Bill Veeck, and he was the owner of the Cleveland Indians at the time. So he went in 1947 and signed Larry Doby. The hotels, he could not stay with the team in the hotels. He had to go to black-owned hotels or maybe a family that would house him. He couldn't go to the regular restaurants of the players. He had to go to black-owned restaurants. Everyone talks about Jackie Robinson or Jackie Robinson Day. Larry Doby is hardly ever celebrated. And when I talked to his son, Larry Doby Jr., about it, he said, well, no one remembers number 2. But in my mind, if we think about this, back in those days, American League and National League were 2 separate leagues. So, yes, Jackie was the first one signed in the National League. Larry Doby was the first black player in the American League. So he was first in a way. There's a guy named Chino Smith. He goes by Charles Smith, nicknamed Chino. And Chino was an incredible player. He was just recently admitted into the South Carolina Hall of Fame. A lot of people don't believe this, but it is documented, has a career .423 batting average in the Negro Leagues. He led the league in home runs average and outfield assists in 1929. He also hit .488 in 1930 in one of the seasons there. Back in, I believe, 2000, Sports Illustrated did a section on the greatest athletes in each state from the 20th century. Chino Smith was actually ranked 16th on that list in South Carolina. And at that time, nobody knew who he was. He wasn't in any Hall of Fame. When you talk about black baseball, people think, well, Jim Rice, right? He was born here in Anderson. He's played for the Red Sox, as a lot of people may know, and then the Cooperstown Hall of Fame. But, he didn't play Negro League baseball. He came up in the 60s and everything. But the Negro League is more like mid-1950s and before. But there's another guy from Anderson. His name Ben Taylor. His nickname was Old Reliable. Anytime you needed him to come through, he would. Ben Taylor was a career .332 hitter in the Negro Leagues. He played from 1909 to 1929. He was widely known as the second best first baseman in black baseball history. The one that's known better than him is a guy named Buck Leonard. Ben Taylor actually tutored and managed Buck Leonard and made him the player he was. Buck Leonard said that I wouldn't be the player I was if it wasn't for Ben Taylor. Ben Taylor, even though he played first base, was also an incredible pitcher earlier in his career. He was actually 22-3 on the Birmingham Giants in 1909, and he was an amazing 30-1 with the St. Louis Giants in 1911. He had 3 other brothers, all played Negro League ball. One of those is C.I. Taylor, Charles Isham Taylor, who was born in 1875. He was nicknamed the Wizard because he was a pretty good ball player, but he was more known for his baseball mind. C.I. Taylor actually fought in the Spanish-American War. He attended Clark College. He led Clark College to undefeated season for 2 seasons in a row. There was also another brother, and his name was Johnny Steel Arm Taylor. How about that nickname? He played Negro League baseball from 1908 to 1925. He was a pitcher. He played for many teams in Anderson and also played for the Greenwood Red Stockings. In 1909, Steel Arm Taylor had a record of 37-6. Never chewed tobacco, never cursed, never drank. Ended up playing for 9 different Negro League teams during his career. So he liked to move around a lot. During those times, if one of the teams offers you more money, you're gonna jump and go. So there wasn't any solidified contracts at that time. There's one more brother. To me, he's the most impressive one. His name is Candy Jim Taylor. And he played from 1907 to 1942. There were many instances where not just he was playing, but he was a player manager, and sometimes he'd come in as a pitch hitter in his late career and still play. In 1923, he was the National Negro League home run leader, and he was a player manager in the 20s, the 30s, and the 40s. And he had a career batting average of .285, which is pretty impressive. The Negro League had the very first All-Star game, even before the Major League did. In 1936, he managed the Denver Post Tournament champions, the Negro League All-Stars, who had 5 Hall of Famers on that team. And that's significant because the Denver Post Tournament was the most prestigious semi-pro tournament in the country. So those that are not in professional baseball, and the Negro League players, as you know, did not get into Major League Baseball until 1947, they could participate in this tournament. So he was the manager of the team that not only won that tournament, but the first black team to win that tournament. And the interesting thing about Candy Jim Taylor and C.I. Taylor and even Johnny Taylor is neither one of these men are in any Hall of Fame. Overall, South Carolina had about 45 African Americans that played Negro League baseball. So a lot of people don't know that we had that many from our state. Here's a guy here named James Buster Clarkson. He was a shortstop third baseman. And he actually made his debut in 1952 with the Boston Braves. He got to the majors. He was born in Hopkins, South Carolina. He was a career 322 average in the Negro Leagues. And his slugging percentage was .557, which is slugging percentage when you average in how many doubles, triples, and home runs. So he was considered a slugger, even at a shortstop and third baseman. In 1954, he went to Puerto Rico and played for arguably the greatest Puerto Rican team in history, the Santa Cruz Crabbers. This is Buster Clarkson right here. And what's amazing about this picture is there's 2 guys in here that a lot of people know about. One, Roberto Clemente, and the other is Willie Mays. So he played with them and was not only one of the best players on their team at 39 years old, but also managed the team. And of course, they won the championship, and they're considered one of the best Latin American baseball teams of all time. Barney Brown. He's also born in South Carolina and played for several different teams. He had a 13-year Negro League career, most notably played for the Philadelphia Stars and the New York Black Yankees. He had a career record of 93 wins and ERA under 4. And in 1937, he had a batting average of .419 and had a .587 slugging percentage. He ended up playing, after leaving the Negro League, he never got a shot in Major League Baseball. And he played in Canada, where he was an incredible player there. Tom Williams was born in Charleston, South Carolina. He was a right-hander. His career record was 61-30 with a 2.72 ERA. In 1917, he had 13 wins to just 2 losses with a 1.28 ERA. Tom Williams pitched 19 innings, the whole 19 innings, and his team won 1-0. So after that game, they gave him the nickname Iron Man. This may be one that will interest the ladies. Mammy Johnson. Mammy not only was an African-American female, she was the first female to play professional baseball, period. She grew up in South Carolina in Ridgeway. But when she got older, Mammy tried out for the All-American Girl Professional League and was turned away. I'm not sure how many of you have seen the movie League of Your Own, but in that movie there's an African-American lady who tries out and they told her, you can't play because you're black. Well, that's based on her. So she was an incredible player. She had, I think, a record of like 33-10. So she was an incredible pitcher. She wasn't just a sideshow attraction. She was really good and had the respect of all her male peers. So she was a pretty impressive lady. She ended up, after quitting professional baseball, became a nurse. For I think 30 or 40 years she was a nurse. As you can maybe tell, we just have an amazing history here in South Carolina, and I just cannot express the amazement of the history we have here in Anderson with the Taylor brothers. The Taylor brothers are considered what they call the first black family of baseball. It's just an amazing history that these guys have achieved that a lot of people don't know about. And not just great players and great men, but some of them have an incredible footnote in history. C.I. Taylor in 1920 was the vice president of the National Negro League. And in 1920, the very first game for the National Negro League was his team, the Indianapolis ABCs, played another team. Well, in that game, 3 of the brothers were playing. Johnny Still-Arm Taylor and C.I. Taylor and Ben Taylor were all on the team. So that's another footnote in history, that not only was he the vice president of the league, but in 1920, 3 of those guys played in the very first National Negro League game.